Hey guys, did you know that each coffee plant produces about 1 pound of coffee per year?
Monotone.
Every time. Yeah.
voice.
The coffee plant is.
It means every time you spill a bean, you're driving a stake through the heart of a farmer, inch by inch, bean by bean.
Micro bean by micro bean.
Every time you grind with a whirly blade grinder, a kitten dies.
Every sack of coffee is worth a year of your life and theirs. What?
Every thing
Shot of
is
espresso.
amazing.
I mean, here's what you should talk about.
If you got something, let's
somebody,
go, dude.
Yeah, I'm gonna. It's not even a. It's a great one.
I got a couple too, but I want to hear what you got. I actually don't even have a couple. I have one.
You only have
Can we
one.
bust
interesting
open that,
thing.
that whiskey over there? What,
You can drink it.
Have a sip, dog.
Keep
I'm
it
on my last
casual?
day of antibiotics. I'm not trying to do.
Not trying to undo the
Have a great
I'm
antibiotics.
not trying to unwind them.
Yeah.
My gut will not love me. I'll go 0 to drunk super fast.
Yeah, it's only 11. It's also only 11:45.
I'm a Michael.
in the morning. So
Photoshop my face.
I'm gonna pull up. Somebody.
Make me look beautiful.
They wrote me a thing in. I'm gonna go back down and find it. It's kind of amazing. I'm not gonna use them because they'll know who they are for sure.
Rick Swanson.
So we put out our podcasts, right? These YouTube ones, and somebody was, and you put your little message thingy, and
Oh yeah,
Right?
we're in the DMs.
yeah,
We're in the
so
IG DMs.
The IG DMs are interesting. This one's great. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
give it to me,
read
dude.
it because it doesn't give away who this person is or who they work for, and I had just so many thoughts. And first and foremost, I will say that in my younger years, and I think maybe all of us in some capacity have been in a place, not quite where you're at, but in a place where we can resonate, and I think a lot of people out there can. And so we were talking in this episode about owners and things and helping and whatever, but the response is this. I'm going to go verbatim. Incentives. You ready for this? That's what it says. Incentives, period. I'm in a cafe that revolves around me, my cupping, my green buying, my roasting, my management, my team, my decisions. The only thing that's not mine is the company. And every day they lose a tiny piece of my heart. It's amazing what a small percentage of a company would push me to do in the shop. I see it in a lot of small companies, and it's the real imposters that get into a place that think it needs them and uses their knowledge as leverage. The real good ones just leave one day and leave the company shattered. AKA the person who's working there, right, who means everything to the company, does everything, leaves, and the company falls apart. The one free coffee a day, the 10-minute scheduled breaks, etc., things that owners use as leverage, but they are just frustrating from an employee point of view. This person must not live in California because it's also just the law. I don't have time for either of those things, and we really want to limit our staff to trying one thing. You offer a day? ? Fuck that. I want health insurance, paid vacations. I want to see a return on my investment. I don't want to just watch someone else's cafe use me for profit when it's me the customers are coming to see and talk to. And I responded,
Oh, this gets good. It's getting juicy.
shooting you straight. Sounds like you got to move towards starting a place to see your vision through, ask for help, and exactly what would make you more stoked from ownership, or perhaps move on. Good luck on all that.
hit the high notes.
That's a lot. Can you read that again?
In general, right? It's here's the thing that I was thinking
I feel
about.
a lot of different ways about that.
I felt a lot of different ways too. And the thing that I think this person is going to feel so betrayed by is that I think they were expecting me to maybe empathize and agree, and I don't at all. I'm
Well, it's not really too different to think that was you 6 years ago.
well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That, there's parts of that, but it's not the same thing. I wasn't asking for ownership, but I was asking for validation. And so there's a difference. We asked for validation.
You were asking for decision, input and decision-making
proper
ability.
validation and clear.
Not just validation, hey, you're doing a good job, pat on the back.
we
You
didn't
wanted,
get that either.
you wanted input into how decisions were made, which is
Yeah.
which is
Well, but I had those
something.
in Santa Cruz, but it was more like this place is progressing like so, and these are some bad calls, and you're not even considering it as
right.
more
You
what
wanted
the thing
more
was.
input
But I was,
on a company level,
right. This conversation, the way it's being put, is like I didn't think that the company was going to fall apart when I left. I didn't think that.
Well, because that doesn't happen.
Most
That doesn't happen.
companies don't fall apart.
Yeah.
When
But
one
I also
person
but I
leaves, they
also
find
didn't
somebody
like
else.
I didn't think quite the same. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think we've all been like in a place where we can sort of see parts of this. Like, I can see parts of that, but I wasn't like full fledged like that.
I mean, you might not have been exactly like that, but if I reread that blog that you wrote after
Right.
you quit, I could infer that you were somewhat in the same place.
But I addressed it to the people, and I got nothing. This is like
Oh, I'm not saying
You know what I'm saying?
I'm not
The
saying the course of
same-
action is
yeah.
the same. I'm not saying you
The
are
approach
the
is
same.
very
But the
different.
feelings.
I'm saying maybe I'm saying the same thing that you're saying, which is I can totally relate, and I could see how if me now read the blog that you wrote then, I would have the potential to be like, this dude's just a fucking whiner.
No, I don't think so. Because there was a difference. There was like an actual interaction where I specifically asked for something and was told, you cannot do that. You have no ability to achieve that. That was the whole catalyst for the whole blog. Was like I believe me and this people that are here right now can get it done. And the response was, no, you cannot get it done.
I understand.
That's where
I
that
understand
was.
that that's the catalyst for it.
Yeah.
It didn't really read like that. I could see how someone would read that and look at it and be like, here's a complainy
Total
guy.
hater.
Yeah. I mean, that's
Yeah.
yeah. I'm not saying that's where your mind was. I'm saying if you had sent that to someone in a message, if you sent that to future you in a message, I mean, it'd be interesting to read it.
I'm
now.
wondering. I don't know though. 'Cause why would James Hoffman have posted it and said this is the best writing in coffee?
Probably because it was really
It was honest.
open and honest.
Right.
Yeah.
So it couldn't have been just whiny.
well,
or
you
else
can
he
be,
wouldn't have wrote
You
that.
can be honest and
Well, no, he wouldn't have posted. Like somebody like that wouldn't post that it's good writing if it looked whiny.
Yeah, I don't know.
You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah,
I think that there's I mean, this wasn't public either, but it's a whole different thing. It's like, how do you approach that? Like what I think is that there's no conversation being had. It's all like, it's all being bottled up.
Yeah, I have no idea, obviously, with this person's situation. I don't even know who it is. But when you read that to me, I immediately think, one, there's an inflated sense of self and self-importance.
Yeah.
Which is, and I can relate to being there too.
That's where we were young.
It's one of those things that probably a lot of us feel at one point in time where it's, I am so important. They don't know how good they have it with me. If I leave,
Totally.
everything's going to fall apart. And, that's happened over and over again. And
I think that's just a youngness
thing-
that we all go
things
through.
rarely fall apart, and we're rarely that one key person that's floating the whole thing. Even though I'm sure this person is passionate about what they do, excited about what they do. It also sounds like they kind of hate their job and don't want to be there anyway.
Right.
And
Yeah.
even if some of those things that they mentioned did improve, that there's such toxicity built up that it wouldn't be a good relationship anyway.
Like something's wrong.
yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
Because like I like to reference like the extreme leadership and like the Jocko book where it's like two sides totally not understanding what each other's jobs are like, right? It's like, to me, that kind of elicits that kind of situation where like it seems like maybe he or that person, I don't know, it's a he, he or she would benefit from like having more dialogue with maybe like the owner for what the owner is experiencing and going through, and then inviting the owner to like have a dialogue and seeing like what that person's experiencing on the day-to-day and the value that person is bringing. And just, I think we often see it in business where people see things from their own point of view and
Really?
aren't really seeing things from other people's point of view. And there's just so much so much that can be bridged by those types of like interactions.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. It's funny. I do totally agree with you. Whoever was reaching out was probably looking for compassion,
Validation.
in that sense, or some sort of validation. And it seems like this would be the place to find it. If you kind of cursor, what am I trying to? I don't know what word I'm trying to say.
We're like a people-centric business.
Exactly.
Right?
So it seems like, they're going to get it, employee problems. But really, if I'm looking at it, or I guess not with this person, but broad sweeping advice for people in that zone, to where if you feel like you deserve all of these things, if you want all of this stuff, that's great. But let's look at your position in the whole thing and look at where you're at, because you are in a position of service. And the right way to get these things isn't by not having the conversation, bottling it up, and breeding resentment with your boss.
Right.
It's also not going to talk to your boss in a way that says, you know what? This whole fucking place, let me tell you this, it revolves around me. People come to see me. People come to see my coffee. I roast the coffee. It's my roast curves. Everything, it's mine. So you better fucking pay me. You better give me that 401k. You better hit me with that vacation, boss, or I'm about to piece up out of this motherfucker. That doesn't sound like someone who I want to give any of those things.
Right.
But I would want to at least have the conversation with someone who says, hey, I really like being here. I like that I get to do the roast curves myself. I like that I have autonomy in the coffee production. I like that I get to teach other people about coffee because I'm passionate about it, and being able to share that passion with other people is amazing.
Right.
So first of all, thanks for that opportunity. That's really cool. I also believe in you and what we could be with this business together. Yeah. And here's some ways that I feel like we could level up, and I'm happy to take those on as projects. And I want to start doing those things right now. Here's my plan to do them.
Right.
Plan's good. And
also, I've been thinking about my future and how I want to be, and I want to level up too. And one of the dreams that I have is to, have a family or progress in this way, or learn these things, or at least be comfortable where I'm at. Maybe one day buy a house. Who knows? Everybody's got their own metrics. So it'd be cool to have a conversation about that, because, I'm at minimum wage. I feel like I've been working really hard, and, I'd love to do some work for you. How can we work together? Let's talk about it. That's a productive conversation.
Yeah, dude, just fucking take what you said and make a template out of it.
Dude.
Fucking put it on the internet for people that want to advocate for themselves, and that's like...
Well, it is a trip, because I read all that, and I'm like, it sounds like you got all that you asked for. It's not like they were like, now this is your job. I mean, and maybe they did, but you usually don't get to green buy, manage, roast, quality, like all that stuff, unless you're like super hungry and asking for it, and the person's like, right on, dude, I'm gonna hook you up. And so I'm like, the first thing I was like do you not like how awesome it is that you're in charge of all that stuff? And you said the same thing. I'm like, that's a huge deal, and it's a rad responsibility. So something else deeper has to be going on. But at the same time,
they feel overworked and underpaid.
Right. So that's where that conversation could work. Or even just like, hey, I have too much on my plate. I need some help. Can we hire somebody? Is it possible to potentially hire somebody's the one, or can I train somebody else off, or can I dish something? Can I focus a little more here, there, and the other? Because I'm overwhelmed and I'm starting to get grumpy about all this stuff. And even just being honest there, if that's the case, like I can't tell what somebody's asking about. I mean,
that's a good negotiation practice as well. Is like, hey, I can't handle everything you're doing. We're going to need to hire somebody to do this. Or, hey, I'm here already doing it. Like, could I be...
That's the thing. It's like, you're not going to get by trying to take. You're going to get by offering to give.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's so one-dimensional, and I get it. I mean, fuck, I've definitely been there.
Well, you can feel trapped, but at the same time, you also might be able to be, if you're tied in that much, you've got to be tied in enough to kind of see, at least I would hope, how the business is doing, and maybe just do a little back-end research. Hey, this is how much insurance would cost for me. Would you mind, like, I'll pay this much, you pay that, like, throw out some ideas about insurance, or if you want profit sharing, hey, this is how we're doing based on the work I'm doing. I've proven that we've grown up this much. I mean, I remember doing that at the previous place and be like, here's what's happened since we implemented all this stuff, and you asked me to do all these things. Here's like where we were, here's where we are. I feel like I've earned the opportunity to get a little more because of the earnings to the company, like the company's worth now, not the, anyway. So there's a lot of things you could theoretically see and go a little deeper on and provide some conversational opportunities that
Did
don't
that
require.
Person respond to you?
They just liked what I said.
Oh.
Yeah.
I always wonder how that shit is going to be perceived.
Yeah.
I feel like that's an area where you're so much more advanced than me in being able to respond to those things and not have it bug you.
Yeah, I'd be thinking about like my answer.
Those things stress me out so much, and I always, because I want to be known as a helper.
Right.
Even though I think what you said is absolutely helpful because you gave that person good advice.
Sure.
It might not be what they want to hear.
I don't think it is.
but maybe this bigger conversation.
Or what they were asking for. But when those things happen, I'm always like, oh, it happened yesterday. It happened yesterday.
Yeah. See, we're just sparking the lights right here. Spark it up. Spark up that imaginary doobie. We're on Earth Day.
And I think some of these things come from really good places. And again, I think
I'd say most of them do, and they just, like people want to do good things, and then they get all bitter over time because they're not communicating.
Well, yeah, and that's where it's just also really helpful as a young person to find some kind of mentor that's maybe been through those kinds of experiences. Like both you guys talk about, like if you're able to kind of work through and try to find some kind of mentor to help you in your like career development and to help you with how the conversations that you want to have and how you're thinking about your position within a company and where you want to grow. It's like, I think that's all super valuable relationships to have and seek out,
Totally. I mean, if we had someone to do that for us, that would have been incredibly valuable, someone to kind of take you, hey, let's look at the other side of the situation. Here's some tips and pointers. So this is what happens on Twitter.
You've been diving into the Twitter. I don't want to sidebar us.
No, I've been tweeting every day. I'm going to tweet all day for a month. See what happens.
When did that start? Because I didn't think you used to tweet.
I didn't tweet at all for years, and then I would randomly put up the blogs, and I was like, I'm just going to see this because the way I write, sometimes I'll try to have an arc, and I really love when the arc ends with a little, like a snapshot or
action.
Maybe it's a line.
At the crime scene, LOL.
Yeah, good tweet. Something that's quotable. I like it because I like the idea of having. You read an article, retention's not that high, but you remember this one part of it. And I was like, a lot of these things seem like they could work somewhere. They're just kind of sitting there. So what if I just took things that are already written, peeled them off the blog, and threw them onto Twitter? See what happens. So I'm not really creating anything new for Twitter. I'm just kind of repurposing stuff.
That makes sense.
It's just an experiment. I don't know. So the tweet that I tweeted was, if you're bored at work because you think you're too good at your job, it's likely that you're not good enough.
Oh, yeah, I saw that one.
So what I mean by that is so many times I see people at work and like, yeah, work sucks. I'm a barista. I'm already really good. There's nothing for me to learn. And work's just fucking boring. I'm just there for 8 hours and it sucks. And my immediate thought is, well, kind of tying into what we just talked about earlier. Hey, you're at work for 8 hours. What you learn is on you, and you're probably just being ridiculously naive about your skill level.
Yeah,
like
is your latte art as good as nicely?
You can't you can't tell me that there's nothing that you could do in this 8 hours that would elevate your game and engage you. You're just that good, right?
Yeah, that's bullshit.
We can drop a lot of coffee content real quick.
Your WBC fucking champion nicely latte art is a great thing. It's like if you're not doing that, you have something that you could be doing.
Are
at
you
work.
wasting less than a half a gram of coffee per dose?
Every
How much
time.
milk are you
How clean is your station in the middle of a rush?
Do you only touch the buttons, or are there smudges from your fingers?
How long does it take you to turn over your station when the new person comes on? Do you have to do a 15-minute cleanup, or is it just so dialed already that all you need to do is switch towels?
Are your towels
Did
folded?
you actually go get the towels for the next person coming on, or do you just make them do it for themselves? I don't know. There's a bunch of different levels of that. What note did you leave for the person during your closing shift for the opener?
Yeah.
Or did you just leave the station kind of weird?
Inspiring other people that you're working with. How are you building them up?
Did you taste your milk drinks?
All of those things. Yeah, the human interaction is such a huge element of it too. So let's say theoretically you were somehow the complete god of whatever you're doing. You couldn't actually get better at the skill that you're doing, whether it's being a barista or being a doctor or being whatever, which I think is impossible. I know it's impossible.
It's impossible.
But let's say it was. there's also the connective aspect of it. You know, you probably have guests where you work. People come in. You probably work with other people. How can you impact their day? Like, there's so many things that you can do with the 8 hours of work.
Yep.
So that's what I'm talking about. If you're bored at work, it's fucking on you.
Yep.
That's just how I feel.
Ford versus Ferrari, only two times he made that track perfect, and he still got better later. Then he died.
All in pursuit of perfection.
All in pursuit of perfection.
Really bummed out at the end of the movie for me.
So
good.
Someone tweeted back,
Oh yeah.
or no, I think it's in good.
I'm just
You know,
kidding.
it's all in good. I'm not hating. It's just Twitter's an interesting place to have a conversation. Or your company isn't offering viable ways to sharpen your skills or resources for growth. Odd statement from someone I highly respect. Which
means this person might not be a self-starter.
Well, I think they just misunderstood what I was talking about, and because everything that I just said here is kind of what I would like to say and clarify.
You're summarizing it in
on-
that statement.
And it's all, and that's the problem with the snapshots. Is the snapshots require you to go in and think and be like, what is he like? What I would hope someone would do is man, I am bored at work a lot. What's something that I could do to prevent that?
Right.
And then you go on the journey of discovery for yourself. Be like, oh, I could do this. Any of these things that we just described.
Yeah.
So.
So the person was responding to you.
The person was responding to my tweet
Gotcha.
of if you're bored at work, and they're like, or your company's not providing resources for you or skills. And then they say, odd statement from someone I highly respect, meaning kind of the same thing. It's kind of weird to hear Chris say that. In the same way, it's probably weird for me to send Jared a message and have him be like, you got some work to do. And I thought about it for a while because I wish I could have just, hit something back. But then I'm like, I want to be useful. I'm so scared of being seen as someone who's just a shit talker because I've been categorized as that before. So that's a fear that I have. Anyway, I'm just saying that I gave it a go, and I broke it into two categories.
You only get like 174 characters?
Yeah, it's such little characters, and I talked to Jenny about it, and she's like, well, this, that, and I was like, oh, great idea. And I took the lane of what I replied was naively thinking that you've learned all there is to learn and working for a company that doesn't support you. Those are two different problems.
Yeah.
Like, it's two different situations altogether. And, my gut reaction was, if you're outsourcing your growth to your company, you're already failing.
I was going to say
because
that's what I thought firsthand myself. I was like,
and
that's kind of actually how we got places, is that we didn't wait for our companies to progress us.
Or you're actively pursuing companies that do support it.
Sure.
Like, you want to fucking go compete? Go work for Onyx. They're gonna fucking have people compete every year.
Right.
If you're like the best at what you do.
Right.
And I totally
invest in yourself and go fucking make it happen.
Straight up. And I totally believe that. And then the reason that I couldn't tweet that right back, even though I wanted to so bad, was the internal tension between, I do believe that there is a huge onus on the person to take personal responsibility and accountability to start there. And if no one else is in your corner, and everybody's got different levels of people in their corner, right? But there's always one little thing that you can do. This person has a job, they show up to work, they could figure out a way to learn. Like, I believe that 100%. I also believe in a world where companies do provide awesome resources for people to help them grow.
Yeah.
But I don't think the reality of the situation is that at our current time where we live in the world, most companies don't.
Absolutely.
And if you hope to grow, you're going to need to do a lot of the legwork. And using the excuse, and I don't know if that's what this person is saying, that's like,
Totally.
I can't progress at work, or I'm just bored at work because my company doesn't offer me anything to do. That just feels not right to me.
Yeah. It's
Yeah, because
Here we have a thingy.
Oh, you have an update?
Update. He says, I agree with you on that. I do think that with the right amount of company support and strong adherence to mission values, a lot of naive thinking is exposed and adequately addressed. That kind of makes sense because if let's say you're having that attitude and you're saying you're bored and you have a support group that's someone to have this conversation with you face to face,
Sure.
Be like, Chuck, I see you show up to work. Looks like you're kind of checked out and you're not really doing that hot on this. Let's talk about how you're feeling about it. Let's
Bro,
talk
that's
about
because I'm better than everyone else here.
Okay, so let me give you a little bit of a lesson.
Are you open to some feedback on
Are
that?
you open? Is now a good time to give you some feedback? But that I do see where he's going, because that would be cool to have someone in-house to be able to have that conversation. So
Definitely.
yeah, but yeah, that internal. You're always so good at being just like, wow. Like,
Sometimes. I mean, not always.
I feel like you're pretty good at it.
Yeah.
Like, it's something that I see you do often. It's I don't know if it feels this way for you or if it just looks like that from the outside, but it's like, damn, that seems so easy for Jared.
Sometimes it comes and goes. It all comes and goes, depending on how my life's falling apart or just living the dream. You know what I'm saying? You
When
never
you're
know.
living the dream, you've got a lot of good thoughts that go through your mind very quickly.
That's true, man.
I'm gonna like
do you wanna talk about?
I'm gonna like his response right now. I'm gonna like your
dude.
response.
I like myself on Twitter.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't plan on having too many conversations like that, but I do think when there is a huge misconception about what is possible in the workplace and how things, like the people's individual potential. So I like to talk about that when I can. You know, if someone who has huge potential is kind of holding themselves down because they have these negative belief patterns that, like, I just can't be anything more without someone giving me X, X, and X. I'm like, and a lot of people are in that position too. And there's definitely one. What is your version of eating breakfast, man?
Yeah, and that's where like Twitter is a really hard
Eggs and
place to have
taters.
that conversation. But that's, I mean, why you see, I think we like talked about it other times or earlier today, but maybe that's a different episode. Like Clubhouse, like if you had a Clubhouse room, like would you want to like field questions from people that are like frustrated or, you know, want to have that mentorship conversation?
That's a great question.
Because then you can really have that conversation in full. You know,
I don't know.
It goes both ways because it's
a
hard
great
to control
question.
the environment in like a clubhouse room. But
Yeah, fuck, who knows?
but just in terms of having like a deeper conversation, that is one of the, like one of the only social media platforms where you can actually, you know, hopefully like bridge that divide between, you don't have to wonder, I wonder what this person is thinking.
Right.
Yeah, right. Which, yeah, I mean, I probably won't interact like that too much anyway with Twitter. I would love for people to read something and think about it, stew on it, and then figure out a way that makes sense for them. That's what I do when I'm looking at stuff. You know, we were in the meeting on Friday talking about books, and we were talking about reading such and such book, and Jared's like, well, let's come back and talk about it, because one of the strange things that happens with books is you read something, you don't really dissect it, you just read it, and then you have this rule. Okay, I got this rule.
Right.
This is a rule that I have. It's a tool in my bag, but you haven't really taken the time to think about it, and those meetings are cool to where instead of digesting something, have an initial response and blasting a tweet back as you're thinking about it. Okay, man, I am bored at work. What can I do about that? I do feel like this. And maybe, I mean, it could be, there's a million different reasons. Maybe through that time that you took thinking about it, you realized that it's not that you don't want to engage. Maybe you realize, like, I actually just fucking hate my job.
Right.
I hate the people I work with. I don't like coming to work. It's not that I check out because I don't have dreams or ambition or even think that it's possible. I just realized that I fucking don't even like being here. And now I got to go find something else.
Or somewhere else.
That's what I mean.
Right.
Yeah, something somewhere, some other situation.
Yeah.
But
Because not every company is for every person.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Right? And that's a whole tangent on itself, and conversations we've had with people. And
Hooli is for everyone.
And then we could do,
Piper.
for some reason that got Adam, my friend Adam.
Did you just start watching it?
He
finally?
wrote back, and not on Twitter, but he hit me up. He sent me a DM, and he's like, or you work at McDonald's. And I said, well, like, I worked at McDonald's, and, you know, if you're really too good to work at McDonald's, it begs the question of why you work at McDonald's. And he wrote back something that's totally relevant, and he's like, not everybody has a choice. And I said, that's true. Like, there are some people who have limitations to where they work for whatever reason. Maybe it's, you know, mental or physical thing. Like, certain people have certain limitations. And I was just making it clear, like, I'm not talking about that person. I'm
Right.
talking about the person who is just grumpy, thinks they're way too good to be wherever they at, and are just calling it in and complaining the whole time. That's who I'm speaking to.
Yeah. Yeah, you need a Twitter account that's like for reflections only.
A Twitter account, that's what I meant.
That's what I meant.
Well, I probably won't respond ever again. I mean, it wasn't super incredibly fun. Like I don't like to engage like that anyway, but anyway, it was cool. Like your thing reminded me
Drips in the saucer, dude.
of that. Yeah,
That's what the tweets are, dude.
Pretty
Drips in the saucer.
sick.
Well, guys, gals and dolls,
Time for you to get a new job. Thanks for listening, y'all. This podcast is an extension of our mission to inspire connection by creating memorable experiences. If you want to get more acquainted with what we do, you can go on over to catandcloud.com. There you'll find a little bit of everything. If you want coffee, we got coffee there. If you want to be directed to some other magic media, basically it's your hub for all things Cat and Cloud. If you want to dive in on a deeper level, we do have a Patreon. It's $5 a month, about the price of a latte each month. You get a peek behind the scenes of what we do here, unpacking some of the ideas that we talk about during this podcast, rants and raves, Q&As, Jared and I just talking shit together. Biased opinion, yes, but I think it's a lot of fun. So thanks for listening. Go out and inspire someone to do something amazing. Bye.